Chilly days are here, so take it easy on your landscape watering. The mandatory watering schedule is in effect November through February. You can water grass, plants, and trees, but only one assigned day a week. Your grass can thrive with less water during the colder months, and your drip irrigated plants and trees, well, they could do even better with watering only once every 7 to 14 days. For more winter watering tips and to find your assigned watering day, visit snwa.com. SNWA is a not-for-profit water agency. The continuing federal shutdown has caused SNAP funding to expire this past weekend. And now it looks like the Trump administration is only authorizing partial support and no permanent solution. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, we sit down with 3 Square Food Bank CEO Beth Martino to help us sort through the worry, the reality, and the practical things we can do to make sure that people in our community literally don't go hungry. It's Tuesday, November 4th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Beth, for those who don't know, can you walk us through the steps of how SNAP works and what that loss right now means for a Las Vegas family on SNAP?
SNAP is the program that the federal government operates to reach people who live below the poverty level and need help purchasing groceries. So there's a wide variety of people who can be eligible for SNAP. It's often surprising for folks to learn that in Nevada, so many seniors, children and their families that rely on SNAP. We have a number of veterans in our community. So people from a number of different walks of life turn to SNAP to help support their the food that they put on their table every month. So what that looks like on a month-to-month basis in Nevada is that over roughly the first 10 days of the month, they have a debit card in their family where money is loaded onto that card through state government mechanisms, and they're able to go and use that card to buy groceries at grocery stores and local markets, even in farmers markets. So it really is an efficient way of reaching folks who are in need, who may not otherwise know how they're going to feed their family, themselves or their family for the month. And it also helps our local retailers.
And you say by helping the retailers, is it literally gives them business. If they accept EBT, which I understand is the acronym used for the debit card, then they're getting that business. They get to put that money in their cash register.
That's right. I think the estimate is something like it's $1.80 that's generated for every dollar that's spent on SNAP. So for retailers and a lot of rural retailers in particular, but even our local markets here. I know the Retailers Association testified last week, like Mario's, like more than half of their traffic they estimate is SNAP driven. Essentially, for every dollar that's spent in SNAP, you return far more than $1 in economic impact, such that in the course of a year, retailers estimate it generates about $1 billion of economic activity in Nevada alone. So
Wow.
certainly in our grocery stores and local markets, they have a lot of folks that come in and use their SNAP benefits on a month-to-month basis. So it certainly helps meet a need, puts food on people's tables, but it also is something of an economic driver for our retailers.
And, I understand that the so-called Big Beautiful Bill made some Nevadans who were using SNAP ineligible or even harder to get on SNAP. So are there also people who are hungry in our community who now suddenly don't qualify for SNAP anymore?
Well, a lot of those changes in HR 1 haven't gone into effect yet. There will be some changes coming after the first of the year, and those affect people who now will need to meet some work requirements. So a lot of people looking for ways to work and or volunteer, but we know that many of those people affected are unable to work. That's why they've been able to receive SNAP over the last many years under some provisions that waived those requirements. And we're also going to see some time limits, and they changed the age threshold for those time limits. So, practically, what that means is that at the beginning of the year, the state is expected to start a process to reevaluate the eligibility for tens of thousands of people that are currently on SNAP. So, we've certainly been getting ready for a wave of folks who are going to need more food assistance, but we really didn't expect that we would be in a situation where overnight we would have tens of thousands of people who needed help.
Yeah, this definitely sends it more into an emergency crisis than planning for changed eligibility. As I understand it, there was an exemption if you were 55. Now that exemption is extended to where you're 64. So 9 more years of working, folks, if you're in poverty.
Right. Well, and even just finding those things, like it to me, I one of the things we've been talking about is in rural communities, for example, it's not always easy to go out and find those jobs or those volunteer opportunities. And what we hear at Three Square through our call center increasingly over the last several months is that people are having difficulty finding work. We're hearing people now before these eligibility requirements have changed saying that they're putting in hundreds of applications and not even getting a call back. So we know that it's already difficult. And when you make those eligibility changes, that's going to send a new wave of folks into the workforce looking for ways to work. And there are some volunteer opportunities that you can take advantage of there. But at the scale that we're talking about, that's going to be really difficult to me.
Yeah, I guess I have to add that our state already has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country at 5.3%, and Las Vegas doesn't really fare well next to other cities of our size. But, you know, Beth, there is this narrative out there that people who partake in food assistance from the government should just work harder, or worse, that there just aren't enough controls in place to stop gaming and fraud of the system. So, how do you respond when you hear or see that narrative? I know that was a softball. That was a softball pushback, and I know you have an answer for that. But
I do.
I.
I really want to be specific about it because you are right. One of the questions that we get all the time is about why people don't just get back to work when they're using food assistance. And that's true. We get that question at Three Square a lot. But what we know of the SNAP recipients here in Nevada is that well over half of them are already working. So people are working when they can. But we also know that about half of our SNAP recipients are in households that include children who aren't eligible to work. So it's not an easy get these folks back to work kind of answer. So there are a lot of different things going on there. We've got a number of individuals with disabilities. We've got veterans. We've got the elderly. So in many cases, when you think about a SNAP recipient, it's not someone that's just taking these benefits or using these benefits without a demonstrated need. They're folks who otherwise would really want to get back to work, but they're unable to because of any number of circumstances. So, um,
And the casinos are not taking child labor yet. So, I mean, those kids, there's a responsibility, I would think, to make sure that those kids are, given the nutrition they need to succeed.
well, absolutely. And I think hopefully something that most people can agree on is that we want to make sure our children are nourished because we want them to be able to go to school and learn. But we also want them to be children and play and do all the things that kiddos do, but they can't do that when they're hungry. So it's to me, it's not a question of getting folks back to work when we talk about a program like SNAP or WIC. It's really a question of what can we do to ensure that there are supports available for people who need that help. And unfortunately, what we're also seeing now is a lot of people who felt like they would never need a food pantry or food assistance and are turning to us because of the shutdown. You've got folks that are showing up to work every single day as federal workers and they're not getting paid. So when it comes to food
Yeah.
assistance, it is not a one size fits all kind of image for the folks that may need help.
Yeah. And yet that narrative just persists. And do you know why that is?
I don't know. I mean, I think in this country, it's probably hard to wrap your mind around that idea because it's the land of opportunity. And I think people have a hard time reconciling that folks may be having a difficult time making ends meet. But it's also easy when you see a community that may be struggling with a housing crisis to look at folks and say, well, those are the people that are food insecure and forget that it could very well be you. So many people are only a paycheck away. So think it's a combination of in our country, we may not wanna think about people having that struggle, but it also opens up a fear inside many of us that could be us. So probably a lot of complicated reasons there that I'm not qualified to weigh in on as, I'm not a mental health professional there and not gonna psychoanalyze anyone.
Yeah, or a sociologist. So we need a panel here to instruct the people. You know, Beth, you did mention first timers. What percentage of people visiting food pantries over, like, let's say the last 4 or 5 months have been first timers?
So we saw about a 16% jump over the last 4 months in people that were coming into our food pantries, and just in that time period alone, about 75% of the new folks that came in were
Whoa.
first-timers. So
Wow.
lots of people who, had never at least in our records, we had not seen them visiting a food pantry, and they were reaching out for some kind of food assistance.
What's your advice to someone heading to a food pantry for the first time?
Well, for anyone, first time or otherwise, I always want people to know that they should reach out for help because you're not alone in this. We are here at Three Square. Our partners are here to help you find what you need. And while we focus at Three Square on food assistance, there are so many organizations out there that can help with any number of needs you may have, from utility assistance to rental assistance, all those kinds of things. So I'd always want to reassure folks that you're not alone in this. We are here to help. But the stories we're hearing right now are really heartbreaking. They always are because we're here to help. And so many people have worked really hard to make ends meet and are just unable to. But right now, I think a lot about some of the federal workers that I've chatted with who they are showing up to volunteer at the distributions that we're running when they themselves are food insecure. So, whether that is a TSA worker who is volunteering their time to help serve their coworkers, but also needs help themselves, we're seeing more and more of that. But just last week, I was really struck. I spoke with 2 different people who were connected to veterans. One who was the spouse of a veteran that relies on SNAP, and another who had an elderly friend who was waiting on death benefits. Her spouse had
Yeah.
passed and was a Vietnam veteran, and they've been waiting. She needed death benefits and was really counting on those to make ends meet, and because of the shutdown, hasn't been able to get them processed. They were in progress about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and so she's had to turn to food assistance, and so stories like that are, I think, for most of us, very unexpected, and, when you serve our country, you don't ever imagine that you're going to have to stand in line for food, but it's happening to more people than you might imagine.
I'm wondering, what are you hearing on the ground from pantry folks about their challenges during this SNAP shutdown?
One of the things we're starting to hear, I guess maybe a couple things. One is it's stretching their capacity. So one of the partners we chatted with last week, who is running a larger distribution, just said, can you help us find some resources to take care of some of our equipment, to fund some of the
Mm.
things that are going to be stretched? Because if we're going from serving, say, 200 families at our average food pantry distribution, and now you're asking us to serve 1,000, things like your pallet jack may stop working, and, a lot of folks don't think about that, but
No one thinks of the pallet jack, Beth.
right? I
You know,
mean,
when the food gets delivered to
not the
these,
first thing that comes to mind.
yeah, these pantries, which are oftentimes just churches
Right.
or, nonprofit organizations, they don't have like staff on hand to like fix that jack.
But the other thing that's happening here, and I know there have been a couple of programs that have been highlighted recently, is that due to some of the federal funding cutbacks and just other changes in the economy, we've seen a few programs that have had to cut back their services. So we've seen some partners that even heading into this, they wanted to do everything they could to be supportive, but they just weren't able to stay afloat. So in addition to our network being stretched by stepping up to do more, we've got some folks who've just said, we can't keep operating this way and have had to either close their doors or cut back on some of their services.
What are people's backup plan right now, if any? I mean, how are they stretching a dollar or even a bag of rice?
Well, I think one of the things we heard quite a bit on Saturday, we did a large food distribution at UNLV that I was at,
Hmm.
and we had another one at College of Southern Nevada. One thing that was particularly concerning to me is we had several people who had walked up to the UNLV distribution who had no idea that this was happening. They had gone to the grocery store. I know we had a couple of young men in particular that we spoke to who had gone in to buy groceries that morning. When they went to check out, found that they had no SNAP benefits. And
Oh,
we were, of course, nearby. And so they came over and were able to walk up and get some food at that location. But what I'm actually concerned about is that people don't have a backup plan and they may not even quite yet be aware because we know that, at least as far as SNAP goes, some folks are paid on the first of the month. Some folks may have received their benefits on the seventh, eighth, or ninth of the month, even as late as the 10th to 12th day of the month. So we're going to be in a progression of folks showing up at the grocery store
waves.
and not
Yeah.
knowing that they don't have any benefits. So I'm not sure for many folks that they've had an opportunity yet to think about what their backup plan is.
I'm wondering if you're hearing people laying the blame anywhere. Is there that discussion happening at this point?
You do hear a little bit of that. I will say, by and large, when you go to serve people at a community meal or at a food pantry, what experience more than anything is thankfulness. People are so incredibly grateful that our organizations are here doing that work. But I did chat with some folks on Saturday. I just had approached them to let them know we'd be serving them as soon as we could. And I said, I'm really sorry that you've had to wait in line. I, um, I hate to see people having to wait in line for food. And I told them I was sorry that they had to wait. And someone said, in this country, this is what we do. This is what the federal government makes us do. And
Mm,
to me, that may be one of the saddest things I've heard because I don't I don't want it to be that way. I work every day to try to make sure it's not that way, but to know there was this level of resignation that this is just what you experience, and, I it's sad, and so I hope what we can provide in addition to food is a little bit of hope that there are people there that are gonna help, and I tried to reassure them that that's what we're here to do, in part is to feed the community, but I also wanna be a voice for those folks that that isn't the way it should be, and
yeah.
we're gonna try to do everything we can to fix that.
Are people laying this at the feet of any particular politician or party at this point besides just the amorphous government?
I haven't heard that. I think for a lot of people, when you're struggling to put food on the table, it's such an immediate basic need that I'm not sure you're taking a lot of time. And the people that I talk to really aren't. And again, so many people that we speak to, they're just so grateful that we're here for them. It's not a lot of finger pointing and blame that's going around. Instead, it's thank you for being here to help me. And how can I give back? And I think that's the other thing that to me is really remarkable. So many people who we help end up coming back and volunteering and giving back when they can. And I was here at Three Square on Friday on Nevada Day, and a mom and daughter came in, and I've shared this story with several people, but mom shared with me that they had been food insecure in the past. And she wanted to use this as a learning moment for her daughter that because they needed help at one time, now they
Yeah.
were in a position where they could buy a few extra bags of groceries, and they brought in a few bags of groceries to donate, and I think that to me is what we see more often than not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give a shout out to my mom. She used to take us when we were kids over to Child Haven to donate our clothing because we relied on other people to give us clothing when we were struggling. And, that generational knowledge handed down or that inspiration from your own family, so important and has definitely impressed me. It does seem like there's some serious bickering about what our state government can and can't do, but also will or won't do. And I know you have to stay apolitical. You're a nonprofit, but let me ask: are the arguments and the standoffs that we're hearing in the state of Nevada right now even focusing on the right issues?
Well, I think for me, we just try very much here to stay focused on the mission of how do we feed the community. But having an opportunity to hear what was on some legislators' mind last week, I I mean, I think to ask the question, why do we have this problem with food insecurity? Why do we have a problem with housing? Whatever the issue is that we're discussing, and to get to what are some of the root causes of those issues and what can we do to address them. That's how I want to lift Three Square along with many other voices to talk about those things. So what are the solutions that we can help bring to the table, and how can we be a voice to help elevate what our neighbors need? So I think, to me, that is fundamentally the most important thing, because we want to get to a hunger-free community, and the only way we're ever going to do that is if we figure out what's bringing folks to food pantries in the first place, and how can we all be a part
Sure.
of that solution. At the same
Sure.
time, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Nevada is one state that is stepping up, trying to do what they can in this moment, and I think, to make a substantial investment and a commitment that if this shutdown drags on, the state's gonna try to come back with more resources, and, I feel like they've done a remarkable job of trying to mobilize very quickly and get us the help that we need to try to get food out into the community. But at the same time, they know, we know, and I've been clear with everyone that it's not enough and philanthropy can't fill this gap.
Specifically, though, talking about what's being talked about in the state legislature is, whether or not we should tap into our over $1 billion rainy day fund. Is this crisis of food insecurity rainy enough that they should look at that, Beth?
Well, I think if this goes on much longer, I would certainly advocate for that. Governor Lombardo was recently at Three Square and said that he would take a look at using rainy day funds if this were to go on. He acknowledged in his remarks when he was here that he knows that this money only goes so far for the two food banks. And so, as the shutdown potentially continues, if SNAP benefits are not fully paid, that we may need more resources. So, we'll see what happens. I know they're headed toward a special session and waiting to see what would be included in the proclamation for that. So,
Yeah.
if this is still going on, I certainly would hope that they could discuss whether they could mobilize some of those resources.
Yeah, and we share your sentiment. And to that end, I know people can donate foodstuffs and volunteer hours to pantries that are perhaps closest to them. But what else can local citizens be doing right now?
Well, I always encourage people to donate, and that can be time, that can be food, that can be funding to the nonprofit of their choice. So many organizations need support right now. So if there's a food pantry or a food program or anyone that's providing support and resources that's near and dear to your heart, I definitely think now is the time to reach out. The best thing people can do, in my view, is always to make a financial donation. Most nonprofits can stretch your dollar much further than you will ever believe. But here at Three Square, we have ability to maximize our purchasing power and to put every single dollar that's donated to good use. And I know that's the case for so many other organizations. So now's a great time to do
Hmm.
that. But it's also, I think, a good moment to engage in some advocacy. If this is something that's really important to you, it's a great time to reach out to your state legislator, maybe, or your federal elected official, and just let them know what's important to you. And advocacy is always important in my view, but now when we're in the moment we're in today, I think it's even more important.
Yeah, my personal one is to reach out to those big corporations in our community that have so many of their working employees relying on things like Medicaid and SNAP to perhaps increase the wages for their workers. That's not a bad one, is it?
Not a bad one. No, not a bad one.
All right. So is your take that money might be the best donation to give at this point? And, you can toot your own horn here. I understand that Three Square as a food bank can stretch a dollar almost better than anyone at this point for foodstuffs to go to those pantries.
For sure. At Three Square, a dollar donation can provide up to 3 meals because we are able to really stretch those dollars. And while we have had a remarkable investment from the state, that money is going directly to purchase food. So there are many other things when we're purchasing this volume of food and moving into the community that we need support for. And that's true for a lot of our partners. We talked earlier about pallet jacks. If you're moving a lot of food, you need pallet jacks, you need trucks on the road. Our staff is working around the clock, and we have to pay them. So lots of things that we need support for, and that's true for many organizations who are stepping up right now. So that support means a lot.
And I know you have a very robust list of food pantries on your website at 3 Square, and that people, if they want to donate money or foodstuffs or technical expertise or repairs or volunteer hours, that all those are available for people to see.
We've updated our website, and during the shutdown, you can go to our homepage at 3square.org, and we have all the ways that you can find information right there, easily accessible. So we're running this week. The last time I checked earlier this morning, I think we had 25 emergency food distributions going on this week, and that's in addition to all of our normal food pantries. So people can pop in their zip code and find something close to them if they need food assistance. On the other side of the equation, if you're in a position to help and you want to donate food, funds, or time, you can find out about ways to do that. We've had so many people that have actually reached out about volunteering that when I checked on Friday, we were full on all of our volunteer shifts. But as
Fantastic.
new distributions pop up, we'll need more help. So I've been encouraging folks, go on our
Sure.
website, sign up so that you can start getting emails from us so that you'll know when we need help. But the community here is remarkable. And, I was not born and raised in Nevada. I'm a transplant, but I'm so proud to be in Nevada when I see the way we respond in times like this.
We get the gritty times and whatever we are the rest of the time, when we see people in need, we do tend to jump. And I appreciate that about being a longtime Las Vegan. That's one of the things to be proud of. And we have a really great pod episode in our archives that people should go check out about going to a food pantry or contributing to a food pantry. And I encourage people to check that out as well. Beth Martino, I know this is a really rough time and that your time is very limited, so I appreciate you taking that time to come on CityCast Las Vegas.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, please go tell a friend. You could also rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Also, check out our show notes as they'll have more information on today's very important topic. Don't forget, you could support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.